Copyrighted June 2013. Doc Castellano, PhD Company, Simi Valley, California, 93063. All rights reserved. I have to have this addendum because I want to present this for especially investigative reporters who maybe won't have to have any need to get scientific explanation. They concentrate as the truth, take the challenge of polygraph, lie detector test, voice stress analyzer. What I present is absolute truth. And trying to not sound like a square, I forgot to say square root in my capital C transformation equation. Therefore, now I will say it correctly and will put forward as I do professionally in my Doc C PhD Company. Capital C transformation equation supplants the passé Lorentz-Einstein transformation equation. No one can decree that ultimate universal velocity. And Einstein agreed with yours truly. You see, there is phase velocity, root velocity, and then my quantum vel, which is the same or certainly similar to what they call tachyons, etc. My capital C transformation equation, capital X prime equals capital X minus VT over the square root of 1 minus V squared over capital C squared, where capital C is equal to or greater than the velocity of light. That is the most greatest presentation, concise, of how this universe in mathematical physics really is. Now, I want to emphasize that if you have any knowledge of physics and if you have any doubt, review my sequence of the great scientists and what they put forward, of the planetary model, that the hydrogen atom, that this is the basis, our universe is a hydrogen universe. If you have a molecule of hydrogen, well, the hydrogen atom is mainly space, from the nucleus to the orbiting electron. And then I have what I put forward, absolutely true. The fella used to go by my office, go to the ocean, talk to friends, come by my office again, and then write a book about string theory. Years before, I put forward universal, not just string theory. Like Poincare put forward relativity. Special generally explained it all 5 years before Einstein, absolutely true. Years before the fella. I put forward universal string theory based on Schrodinger's work. Scientists who research it. Absolutely true. Now, one of the reasons why I'm anonymous is exposing Einstein, who they didn't want to be exposed. Even though now there's 1,000 about him being a plagiarist and so forth on the internet. And that Newton was a made physicist. Every country wants to have their man, the best scientist, the best, etc. Well, Newton, as he got older, wanted more money. And it appears as though those who made him the scientist said, hey, we're giving you money and you're getting too argumentative besides. because he was losing arguments as to what maybe was actually physics and how to represent it, because he would plagiarize somebody else's, they would feed him what somebody else had, but then somebody in that time would come up with what was better, and that's what was used, and that's particularly true in calculus and how you represent calculus as symbolization. But calculus started with Galileo. He had an uncle that was a monk, and they were delving into how motion is in an orbit. And he explained it to Galileo that he was calculating. In Latin, they use Latin as calculus. In my opinion, that's one of the definitely early beginnings of calculus. So, you see, Newton then left science. And they don't talk about that. And became a debt collector. And at that time, a debt collector was worse than just about anybody, because if you didn't pay him, he threw you in jail, and he actually hung those who maybe he didn't like and wouldn't pay. That's a scientist becoming a debt collector that would hang people over money. You see, so they don't want me to be known because I have done the original work of Xerox and the laser beam, absolutely true, and other great work in other disciplines. And I have researched as to who really did what, when, and how. And now this fella, you have to ask him the questions the day before, and then he'll give you an answer where he has an interpretation. I let it all go by. Very difficult to challenge a fellow in a wheelchair. But when he said there's no God, and he got into the discipline of theology, now he's away from those who screen him. And he's dumped his wife and family to run away with his attractive nurse. And they found him. And they said, well, aren't you doing science? He said, no, worse than Newton. He said, no, I did science. I want to just live with some money with this girl. But he wasn't as strong as Newton. So they forced him back into that wheelchair where they feed him the questions. Do you understand? Now, this is really me, but 4 years before, universal string theory. I have concepts that have been borrowed, and they use a portion of it, because if I get a sign and walk on a sidewalk, wow. I mean, they gave a fella a big prize for proving that a certain expression was unprovable. I proved the answer. But a fellow would have said, this is the answer. All the fellow said, when I first thought about it, it was beautiful. No, symmetrical. There's where you get all of the symmetry from that they use today in modern science. I used symmetry. Do you understand? So it isn't just the Xerox and number one, the laser beam and string theory and symmetry. I have something that is absolutely, in my opinion, probably the greatest put forward in the history of the human intellect, in the raising the state of the art of the discipline of science. I'm waiting for one of these scientists to say, I challenge you. You didn't do the work, which would then be a farce, because I would take a polygraph lie detector test, voice stress analyzer, and if the fellow claimed he did the Xerox, he would have to do the same, etc. And then I will put forth what in total is definitely the best not because it's my work, in the history of the human intellect. So if I make a mistake, I immediately correct it. My capital C transformation equation is capital X prime capital X minus Vt over the square root of 1 minus V squared over capital C squared, where capital C is equal to or greater than the velocity of light. Now maybe you're seeing the light as to why I've been forced to be anonymous, because I worked, I was one of the founding fathers of the CIA. Hoover was so bad. My opinion is we had to combine our intelligence forces into a central intelligence agency. You understand? I have done more good in more fields than any man in the history of the United States. That is the absolute truth. But this is copyright as far as universal divinity, scientific proof, and of course you believers recognize and accept the truth, and I say thank you.